So this webinar here is about IFC export. My name is Dennis Knudsen, and I work as a developer and support engineer at the StruSoft team here in Horsens. Today, Thomas, my colleague, is also attending this webinar, and he will try to answer your questions about IFC and exports if you have any questions during the webinar. At the end of the webinar, I will also be available for the questions. So if you rather ask me, then you can ask them at the end of the webinar. So the rough agenda for this webinar is we start with an introduction to the industry foundation classes, also known as IFC. Then we're going to take a look at how can we export the IFC from the three applications that we can have impact to: AutoCAD, BricsCAD, and Revit. And last but not least, we're going to take a look at how can we import an IFC model to impact through Revit. This webinar would take approximately 20 to 30 minutes. First of all, what is Industry Foundation Class IFC? So many of you might have heard about IFC. Many of you might use IFC every day. But for those who don't know, IFC is an open file format that can be used to communicate between applications that don't have the same file format. So for example, we can extract a file from AutoCAD, BricsCAD, and Revit, and then we can use that file to put in a model viewer or anything. So we can do, for example, class detection. This file format here is based on the Express language, and I don't want to get too technical, so I won't go into that. IFC was created by Building Smart in 1997 and released the first version of IFC there. And the newest version of IFC is called 4.1 and was released last year in June. And they roughly put out a version each year. Despite that, the IFC is an open file format, and most of the programs we use in the building industry can export to it. They actually export it, differently, or they export, it's not completely the same output. And the reason for this is because that all the information in, for example, AutoCAD, BricsCAD, and Revit needs to be mapped to the IFC, so that the information from the AutoCAD can have the same information in in the IFC. So if the companies that have the different applications don't interpret the information in the same way, then we can get different output, even though we export it to the same open file format IFC. If you want to know more about the more technical stuff behind IFC, you can go to Building Smart's homepage, and at that homepage we can find out information about the 4 different layers in IFC, how the relations between the layers are, and how the entities are inherited from each other. And here we have an example of a wall, which IFC attributes entities that are attached to that wall. So knowing this, or knowing where to find it, can be useful, especially in Revit, where you have the possibilities to map a lot of IFC entities to the Revit categories. So you're sure that you get all the correct information from your Revit model over to your IFC model. Otherwise, some things might be missing. But all this technical stuff you can go and read by yourself at the homepage. So what do we do when we want to export our beautiful beginner course building here to an IFC? So the first thing we do is, I'll do it with AutoCAD first. We go here to 3D. We go and create a new drawing. I'll just call it AutoCAD, just as we will create any other drawing in the project manager. We open up the drawing. As we can see here, I actually have some other drawings here called finished, and this is just because in this one here, 3D AutoCAD, I will just generate the first floor here, because of course the larger the project, the more time it takes to generate the IFC file and all that stuff. And of course I don't want to waste any of your time more than necessary, so I only take one floor. But the first thing we do is, of course, as anything else, when we want to generate something, we go to Plan, Generate Plan. We choose what we want to generate, in this case floor 1, and we choose IFC, solid IFC. We also choose we want to generate custom materials. So the reason why we choose solid IFC is because that the solid IFC contains information that are needed to create, or needed to give the correct representation in the IFC model. So of course it generates the plan, and after the plan are generated, then do we need to add or map, as I told earlier, map information from AutoCAD into the IFC. So we're going to put on information that, or mapping information, so AutoCAD knows that the impact categories are mapped correctly into the IFC. We are going to use base, and then this one here called add property set. It will open up a dialog box, and here we actually have a possibility to choose which information we want to have in the IFC export. And there are some here by default, and in my case I'll just take all of them. Of course, if some of them isn't necessary, we just click them off. But I say okay here. And then we actually just go up to our AutoCAD up here. It's just thinking adding the sets. We go up here, we say export, and then we choose IFC. Note that this option is only available for architecture. So if you don't have AutoCAD Architecture, then it's not possible to do the IFC export. We browse for where we want to place it. I will just do like this here, _2, save, give it a project name like this, and then we actually just say export, and then AutoCAD will do its thing. So the point is that impact, the export here, IFC export, is purely AutoCAD. It's the AutoCAD function that we are using to export the impact elements, and that's why we add property sets. So if we go in here into our IFC, you see there's some stuff here, and we open up our IFC. In our model viewer, I use Solibri. We can open it up in any other model viewer. Again, depending on the model viewer, which one you open up the IFC in, the result can vary because of how the application interprets the information in the IFC file. So if we go in here, then we can see here I have my first floor, and some of you may notice that the stairs here are black. And if the stairs are black, or any of the elements are black, it can have something to do with the material. If the material is not mapped correctly, or in the standard admin not given correctly, then it can be black. What you can do is, if some of the elements are black, you can go up here, you can say set color map, and use one of the other colors, color maps. If you say, for example, architecture, then we can see here all get a little bit dark gray. So I'll just close this one down here and open up my AutoCAD finished. And the reason why I do this is just because that in this, what you say, IFC model, I have my whole building. It looks a bit nicer. And we can see here how it's structured. It just give a better picture when the building here has more floors. So we can see here, the building here, we can see our custom materials. If I go in here and hide, then we can see here, it actually export all the custom materials also. If we go to the tree, and the tree here is where we can find our objects, or all the objects actually. Is an object for each, what do you say, object in the model. And this is where I think AutoCAD could improve, because when we are looking at BricsCAD, for example, it's actually split into floors and element types, but we will see that later. If I click here on my object, we can see we have two tabs down here, impact _ sandwich wall. We can see how big in here the element are and how it's built up. Under impact, we have all the information that are set in the property sets that should be exported. So for example, as I said, if some of this is not necessary, we can just go in here and don't select it in the property sets when we put it on. So this is basically AutoCAD, and quite easy to do actually. Just remember, we need an architecture to be able to do the export. So the reason why I'm closing down my stuff, my project manager, is because that I'll now show how we do it in BricsCAD. I go in here and change. The only reason why I change in here is because I both have BricsCAD and AutoCAD installed on my computer. If you only have BricsCAD or only have AutoCAD, then the settings in here are correctly, and of course you don't need to do that. But I open up the project manager again. We can close this one, or we can actually leave it open. Then we can compare it with the BricsCAD. We go in here, project, and we basically do the same again, just with BricsCAD. The thing is with BricsCAD that it don't have the same dialog box as AutoCAD have. So what we need to do with the BricsCAD is actually we need to change the DVG file of the drawing that we create. So when I create my drawing here, same way as I do in AutoCAD, I go in here on the drawings and say open folder. And then I find my 3D drawing I want to make my BricsCAD in here. I replace that file with, let's see here, this one here called IFC property sets definition. This file here can be found on our wiki page, and I will put that in the description where to find this file in the YouTube video. But we go in here, put it in. I rename this one here because then I don't have to write it again. I just delete it like this, rename this one here. And now when I open up my BricsCAD here, then is it actually the one DVG with that's containing the IFC property sets definitions. Again, when we open up the BricsCAD, it looks a lot like AutoCAD. We go into precast plan, generate plan, only generate floor 1 solid, press OK, yes. Then it generates, and what we need to do again after it's finished generating, we need to add the parameters or the property sets. So again, BricsCAD, so BricsCAD knows how to map the information to IFC, so we will get the right output. Both in BricsCAD and in AutoCAD, we have, what you say, a bit of a limitation because of the, what you say, property sets we add is limited. When we get to Revit, you will see that it's much more, it's better designed for, what you say, IFC or what you call it, because you have much more options. But we go to Precast Base, add property sets, and here in BricsCAD we don't get the dialog box because it's placed in the drawing that I replaced the other drawing with. We go to File, Export, then we choose where it should be placed. IFC, let's see here, BricsCAD_2, and we go and find our IFC file. So what you will notice is that both files look like each other, but we have actually, stairs are not black for some reason. We have a better tree structure over here. Right here in this, here we only have one. So I will actually open up this one here called Finish, because we have all the storage or floors, and it will be better to see how BricsCAD actually differs from the AutoCAD, or how the IFC file differ from the AutoCAD file. So we have here, if we look here in the site, we have one, and we have the different floors. We have slab objects, we have wall objects. We have the impact tab here, just as we have in AutoCAD with the different information. Don't have the sandwich tab though, but we have a better tree structure up here. So if we take like this here, and if we open up the AutoCAD also, then we can see here that it's much easier to navigate here in the BricsCAD actually, where AutoCAD is just all the objects under one tab. Close this one here down. So as we can see here, the elements are having the, what you say, the color we set in the standard admin with the yellow. It's also possible to have a model without the real colors, or what you call it, RGB colors from the AutoCAD, or sorry, from the standard admin. The colors are set when we generate the solid in AutoCAD and in BricsCAD. So as we can see here, this is just silver, or yeah, as you can see here, the setting that sets this and sets if it should be with color or without color when you generate this IFC solid is this one here called solid color by material. If it sets to 1, then it will take a reference in the RGB color code in here. If it's set to 0, then it will take a reference in the layer code in here in the system layers, the color code here. So this is AutoCAD and BricsCAD. So last but not least, let's take a look at Revit. In here in Revit, I have my model also. And as I told, there is a bit more possibilities in here in Revit for the export. And if we go up to File, Export, instead of choosing IFC, we go down here to Options and chooses IFC option. In here, we get the Revit category, we get the IFC class name, and we get a long list. So in here, we can actually take each Revit category and say which IFC class name should it be exported to, be mapped to when the export is happening. And usually if you're missing anything or something in the IFC export, it's probably because that the Revit category is not mapped to the correct IFC class name. As you can see here, we have something that is not exported, something like this. So if you don't know where it should be, would you say which category it should be, then what it's told, this one here, the Building Smart, here, homepage, is very good to finding the different, what you say, entities and class names where which one could be assigned to. And again, this differs from which one it should be from person to person or company to company, and that's why there should be some guidelines for so that we export it in to the same IFC class name, so we always get the same result. But here we go up to export just like everything else. We don't have to set the property sets. We did that down here in options. We choose IFC. We choose modify setup. In here we have the possibility to choose different IFC versions. If you read enough about it, then there are a difference between the different versions. I mean that some of the new ones takes a bit more than some of the old ones, but there's a lot of information online about that. We will go into level of details. How should the element geometry, what level of detail should it be? It should be high. And here on the advanced, we need to click on export parts as building elements. The reason why we need to do this is because the joints are done as parts here in Revit, and of course we want to have the parts shown. We of course choose where it should be exported to. Let's say IFC project 2, and then we do the export. So as we can see here is 5,555 elements that needs to be exported. So in a large project, it can take some time to do the IFC export. And yeah, of course, do it overnight or something like that if it's a very big project. So this here takes a bit of time, and as I said, I don't want to waste too much of your time. So I've cheated in forehand, and I already made an IFC. As we can see here, actually out here in the IFC, the size of the Revit IFC is actually substantially larger than the AutoCAD IFCs. This here is the full BricsCAD. This here is the full AutoCAD. This down here is the full Revit. So it contains a lot more the Revit because you can specify that much. So for some reason it always zoom very long out. Let's go see here if we can get it zoomed in. Wait, here it is. You can see here, have a building here in Revit. The tree structure is a bit different. It's built up by assemblies. And so we can see here, actually, when I mark it here in my model viewer, it will actually highlight it over here. It didn't do that in BricsCAD. It didn't do that in AutoCAD. We have all the different information about the model and all that stuff down here. We don't have the impact tab because we don't put in impact, we don't put information on it in Revit the same way as we do in BricsCAD and in AutoCAD. In Revit is just information on the assembly and stuff like that. So that's basically how we do the exports in the 3 different applications where it's possible to have impact modules on. Here, as the last thing as on this webinar, I want to show how we can take an IFC model. My model is like 6 walls, I just showed, just to show the principle. Let's see here, where is it? It's this one here. Just to show you how the principle on how to take an IFC model, import it into Revit, and actually transfer it into an impact model. So you can see here, pretty simple, right? Don't even have a roof. So what we do is we go up here, we say open, and we want to open the IFC. Choose the IFC we want to import. There. Now we have our walls, but before we do anything, we want to turn it into an impact project. So what we do is we go to either link project, new project. The ones who have worked with impact and impact on Revit already knows how to create a link. To those who haven't worked with all this, there is a solution for this if you want to know more. But the project is now linked. We go up to map definitions, and here Revit will scan, or impact will scan the Revit project, see which Revit walls are, in this case walls, are there in the project, and how should we map the definitions. It's basically actually the same we do here with the Revit type or category into an impact definition. So we're mapping one information over to another so we can work with it. Actually the same thing as IFC. So now the elements are mapped, and we can actually see here that I have the possibility to select all the walls. I'll press OK here to make sure that the lifts and bracings and stuff like that are added. So if I go in here in 3D, we can see here, looks a bit funny, and this is because my view graphics are not set to parts. When this one here is set, then we actually have our elements. And now we can work further with the elements, save them into the database, do whatever we want, so it gets connected into the project manager. So this is basically how we export to IFC and how we import IFC to Revit so we can work with the IFC model. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I can hear Thomas is typing a bit, but let's see here. I don't know, have you answered, Thomas, anything? Yeah. Good. So this here will be uploaded to YouTube, and if you have any more questions about IFC and all that stuff I just talked about, you can feel free to contact me or any of my colleagues. Yeah, can you have a nice day, and bye-bye.